I just wanted to pop on here for a hot second and just speak about my second to latest podcast episode. So, not the one about Persona 5, the one prior to that one, which talks about reciprocity. And I wanted to just share little bits of that because I didn't like do an actual Reels post like I normally would on my feed. I did like a story post about it, but I didn't expand on it as much because it did get a lot of plays without a lot of promoting, but I think it's something that will be useful for those who may not have listened. Something that they can kind of implement in their own lives, right? So, quick backstory. As you know, and I've mentioned in my podcast episodes that a lot of my lessons have been learned through my relationships, through all sorts, all types of relationships. We're talking platonic, we're talking, friendships, intimate relationships, we're talking business relationships, familiar, all those types of relationships you can imagine. I've learned my lessons. I've also received counsel about the way that I approach my relationships. Okay. So that's just wanted to get that out there. So a lot of us tend to, when we think of reciprocity, there's this tendency to always consider reciprocity from an external, just on an external relationship sense, and very rarely do we think of reciprocity in an internal sense. The give and take. What are we giving to? What are we taking from? What is that exchange? We don't like looking at relationships as transactions. I debate that honestly. I think that life is transactional, and especially when we start to speak about boundary setting and uh, standards and things of that nature in relationships, to me, when we set boundaries and when we set standards, that in a way, for a person to receive access to you, they must meet a certain condition, requirement. That in itself, to obtain access to you, would be a form of transacting, quite frankly. But that's just me. You can use the term exchange if it sounds better, but I mean, we're talking down to different levels from and I mentioned in the podcast, from like a macro to a micro level, we're talking atomic and like little particle sense, scientifically, all of those levels, molecular, there's always in some form of an exchange, some transaction that's happening. We can't even see it. But anyway, there is that thing that happens, but we very rarely look at our reciprocity in the sense of how it may affect us if we're operating in falsity or if we're operating in deception with ourselves. So, quick backstory. I spoke about how in my life I was the overgiver, just well intended. I love, because genuinely I love to give. It's just what it is. But and I mentioned how I was told in counsel that I tend to just meet bad people or make bad relationships, and then I tend to give a lot, give a lot, give a lot, or and whatever. But what has happened in that awareness was that, and it happens for a lot of us, is that we tend to think that the problem is external. It's bad people. Now, don't get me wrong, there are some rotten eggs out there. But of course, one should be aware that the consistent poor relationships is a great testament to our own poor internal relationship with ourselves. Do you know yourself enough? All of you, and if you don't, then you're more apt to make more unpleasant decisions that affects you in the long run. So some years ago, I was given a particular task in a spiritual reading. And I was given like this herbal cigarette blend. And I was told to smoke it, but one for dreams and the other one for to smoke in mirrors. I was told to smoke in mirrors, and it would help me to see through illusions. Now, at the time, right, I wasn't aware of, I was just thinking about it again, like at an external sense. Well, I'll be able to see through fake people and see through this and that. Da, da, da. And as the older that I get, I just recently practiced this. And that's why I sound a little congested, because smoking for me is not it's not the best. Smoke in general, although I love the smell of it, it's just certain smokes, certain, burning herbs. I love the smell of it. It messes up my sinuses. So in smoking in the mirror, we don't tend to think of the smoke and mirrors within ourselves, within our own person. So um, looking back now and just being mad internal, just passing couple, I would say since like the mid to end of May, I've been like in this super internal, just extra reflective space. Um, and what I did was the first thing that kind of triggered this journey down my understanding reciprocity on an internal sense was I made this post on my Facebook, my personal Facebook story, that I was closing up shop for a little bit, and I posted it there, and then eventually I shared the post to my wall, and then I did a video explaining it to those who may not know, because some people are at the time, they assumed that I was referring to them, that these were people who I had open contracts with. They thought that I was going to close up shop and just stop all of and I was like, no, that's not what's happening. I'm closing up shop for people that I told I would be available for at the end of May, but I'm choosing not to. I had to explain it in that way. But anyway, so there was about 80% positive feedback and about 20% negative feedback. None of the negative feedback was on the wall or in the comments, but it was privately, or it was passive aggressively on social media. Okay, cool. But I ended up going down this path of reciprocity, trying to understand it, because I thought I knew what it was. And I thought about the relationships that were the people that were upset. Now, these people that were upset, I'm just putting it out there, have received something from me and have been receiving, for instance, like free services, discounts, whatever it was. I was doing work for them for free, or just based off of me liking them, and yada, yada, yada. And now I've been told prior to even doing this, you spend too much of your energy working on with everyone else, and you don't give yourself that much time. You don't give yourself that much. And I'm just like, no, it's just making excuses. So I ended up learning. I mean, this is something that I knew, but I forgot, and then revisiting this lesson hit me much deeper. But I learned that not only is it an overgiving thing, but some of us who tend to give a lot of their giving can be done in distraction, distraction from working on yourself or working with yourself and bettering yourself and sharpening your skills, sharpening your talents, abilities, focusing on your own babies, metaphorically, whether that's business ventures, whether that's different creative, whatever it is. Instead of working on ourselves, we tend to distract ourselves by working in other people's homes or doing other different projects for other people. And although they may have appreciated, my enthusiasm, and they have appreciated the work I've done for them, and in the end, in return, there was nothing. I got nothing from them, and if anything. And that's not that I was expecting anything, but it's just this, basically, I was essentially giving to the wrong people, because I look back at my life and I said, okay, out of all the relationships that you've had of all types, think about the amount of energy you've given out and what you've gotten in return if you asked for it. And I had to think like, yikes, I didn't get that much in return. So that's where I started to go. But it was less about people, way less about what others do for me and how much it wasn't even about that. It was about me. And I came to this understanding that when I have made the decision to like jump and help others, or just jump and make decisions for those who I don't think in foresight, I don't know, maybe I intuited that it was a bust, but sometimes I did it anyway, and other times I was just doing it. When I was making those decisions, a lot of those decisions were made, and I said short and shallow breaths, meaning that it was a reaction. And thinking back, if I'm 100% honest with myself, yes, it was done just out of excitement, because I typically just have an excited energy. But it was this knowing good and well I had things on my own desk. I was like, I'll do it. Sure, I got you. I got you. I got you. And then I remember me eventually kind of like resenting it because, I either gave low prices or whatever it was. And I was kind of left with a lot of the work that I really did not want to do, So that was part of it. But it was, again, it was from a distraction. So this time I've spent with myself, I pulled back a lot, closed up shop. Making changes and yada, yada, yada. So in this, I understood deception with myself and how being deceptive with yourself, how that affects others, and how that creates a persona or how that creates a personality or just an overall kind of like an apparition of you that people think to be true. They think it's real, until the real you is like, I cannot do this any longer. This isn't working. This isn't working. We can't work together. The real me has created this persona, or this has created this little spirit attached to me that I've given my life energy to and sacrifice and laying on this metaphorical altar and giving energy to. And it has been functioning on my behalf, but more so me being the one behind it all, kind of moving it and things of that nature. And people have been led to think that is true. In real life, the real me is exhausted, but that other me is kind of showing up like, I got you, I got you. And when I've decided to no longer give myself or give my life to that thing, that thing died. But so did all of the other things that may have been benefiting from that apparition of me. And as to be expected, there was some pushback. And I'm saying this for you to understand or to expect these things. When you are not operating in the truth of who you are, and you're not operating from, and one, if you're not taking counsel, usually counsel from, not usually, but counsel from elders is never meant to shortchange you. It is never meant to dim your light. None of that. Not that I've ever thought that to be the case, but it's never meant to shrink you or to turn you into someone that you're not. Counsel, if you take a moment and you're objective to it all, you're able to see that counsel from eldership is meant literally for your betterment and for your development. That's it. Elders know you more than you think you know yourself. I know people are like, oh, nobody knows you more than you know yourself. No, there are elders who are familiarly down your path, who's watching you and observing you by your behaviors, everything. They can tell where you're at. No matter how many people are telling you that you have it all figured out, you don't. So, as expected, my elders were right, and that was something that I learned that, in being deceptive with myself and running from my own missions and my own things, was I involving myself with relationships that were just give, and there was no reciprocity. But likewise, in an internal sense, the reciprocity that I was holding within myself was not with my divinity. It was not with the creator at all. It was literally with an apparition or with a spirit that was designed to be fake. It was a deceptive or a persona. So the give and take was literally the same give and take that it was externally. It was all give, and it was just taking from me. There was no giving to this thing and it was giving me something and it was equally benefiting me. No, not in the core, not in the truth, not in a deeply benefic sense. No, not at all. So that deception kind of carried me until it couldn't, because it never was supposed to. It was never was supposed to. Now, this is not suggesting that I was like this fake dude. No. And a lot of my services and a lot of just relationships I've had, there were I would say about 70% of my relationships I knew good and well were extremely just one-sided. I knew that. I knew it was. And then others I was kind of like, maybe, let's not run from it and let's just give it a shot. Usually I learn that the people that I usually run to are the ones that are not necessarily good, or the relationships that I run to or I make so much space for usually are not the ones, but the ones I reject or run from usually are the ones I should be going towards. So that's just a personal thing I've noticed. Anyway, uh, so in with yourself, if you find yourself knowing good and well you have no business doing things, but you still make the decision to go forward with it, then you are operating in deception, self-deception, because the core of who you are knows that this is not good for you. Regardless of how you feel, um, the truth is the truth. You can't. Now, yes, the truth changes. Yes, of course, but the core of who you are is just not. It's not meant for certain things. And if you respect that, then and you make the decisions appropriate to who you are, copacetic, you're great. But when you are doing a lot of the relationing or the relating, um, and the connecting with the wrong things, you'll find that the more you're siphoning your own energy away, it could, for many people, take them a long time to recover. You want to be careful with that, because I know people who have fed the beast or fed that thing to the point where they almost have lost themselves, and it's taking them quite some time. We're talking where they're now in their older years trying to understand who they are, because they were operating from a sense of falsehood and deception. So that smoke and mirrors exercise was great in the sense that I know that for my astro people, there was a lot of astrological things that were taking place as well. But that time, it wasn't until the burnout was near and nigh that I was like, okay, it's time to really think about this, because this does not feel right. So now I must take the time. So as a result of that, you can, like I said, you can expect people to think that you're acting funny. You can expect relationships to just fall away. Um, and that's fine. But uh, it's best to be you than it is to operate to operate a persona. It's way better to be you. You can never go wrong bettering yourself, regardless of how it is perceived on the outside. Now you are correcting the things, and you're making an internal correction. So of course the external is going to have there's that kind of like that disconnect. So you have to just clear it out and just continue to work on you. But just a good heads up, being very careful. Trust the guidance in the eldership. Trust it. Just trust those people. Again, you'll know an elder by what you'll know an elder based upon their guidance helping you to be better. If the elder wants you to be stuck with the elder, that's not an elder. An elder wants you to literally do well so that you don't need them any longer. That's an elder. Nothing more, nothing less. They are teaching you how to go within and to connect with your own divinity. And once you do that, then they usually kind of fall away or disappear. Or you have your lessons that you must learn, and maybe you have those moments where you go back to them. This, that, and the other. But take that time to really think about that. Are you where am I relating? Where am I going to? What am I transacting or exchanging with? What is this? And when you find, if you're in relationships that are exhausting, that are draining you, then you are most likely, what you're really doing is you're siphoning your own energy to a false you. That's the real drain. The drain is not necessarily the people. You are draining yourself because you're giving to a spirit. You're feeding your life to a spirit that, once you stop feeding the spirit dies. So stop and give yourself your energy back, and watch how life changes for you. You'll see just how much better things are for you. You find better relationships, not even find, but you see that the better you relate to yourself, the much more your relationships on the outside, they show up. And I can honestly say that since I have closed up shop, and since I have, I'm actively reworking my business and raising my prices. It changes a whole lot of everything else. Um, it definitely does. You cannot and should not give, but on an external sense, you should not give to people who are unwilling to meet you in a manner that you need to be met. Now, this is not excluding charity. This is not speaking about those types of services, those acts of services, or just donating and things of that nature. We're not speaking about that, but we're talking about those relationships with yourself and how they can positively or negatively impact your life. So keep that in mind. And that's all I wanted to say. Bye.